The table, we have award-winning journalist Seth Hettena. He's out today with the new book, Trump, Russia, A Definitive History. Also with us, senior reporter at Vanity Fair and NBC News and MSNBC contributor, Emily Jane Fox. This morning, Emily has new reporting on Michael Cohen grappling with his new reality after Rudy's meltdown. Her piece reads in part, Cohen's attempt at normalcy was complicated recently by Trump's bizarre interview on Fox and Friends, and then exacerbated by a string of equally bewildering comments uttered last week by Rudy Giuliani. Cohen, for his part, is mostly distraught over the impact on his family, according to the people familiar with his thinking. I live for my wife and kids, he tells friends. I die for my wife and kids, and this is all ruining their lives. Cohen himself is grappling with the fact that in his early 50s, his life and his business will never be the same, and that he is isolated from the people in Washington around Trump, who, he has said, have been treating him as though he is disposable. I am sitting here in this nightmare, Cohen has told people.
Wow.
Seth, Emily, good to have you both with us. We'll talk about the book in just a second, but Emily, let me pick this up. I mean, this jives with a lot of what we've heard from people around Michael Cohen, is that he has gone to sort of a dark place, realizing that the president likely won't have his back when the rubber hits the road here. What does that mean for his potential willingness to work with the investigation?
Well, look, he has not been charged with anything yet, so I think that there are a couple of steps in between what's happening now and what could happen down the road. But I interviewed him at the end of the summer, and he said to me, I would take a bullet for the president. And now what he's saying is, I would die for my family. And so I think that there is a shift in that. Now, I have not heard anything about people asking him whether he'd take a bullet for the president now, so I don't know if that answer has changed or not. But look, he is completely alone here in New York. He has not been supported by the people in D.C. and by the president. And as people close to him have said to me, that is a really dangerous place for Michael Cohen to be.
Yeah, I hear everything. All the quotes make sense. But what is it about people in this bubble, Trump bubble, that they don't foresee what he is now saying? How does he find himself here?
I think that there is something that Donald Trump is able to do to people around him where they think perhaps this isn't going to happen to me, that they see it happen to other people. And, you know, this is something that happens, you know, girlfriends, boyfriends think I'm going to be the one to change that person. It's that they may have treated people like that in the past, but it's not going to be me. And I think that perhaps Michael Cohen is realizing that it is me right now, and I can decide what to do with that.
Some of the things Cohen, allegedly might have done for President Trump, Seth, is help facilitate in some way dealings with Russia.
Yeah.
Fair to say. And tell us more about your book.
Well, you know, I've gotten the biggest bounce for news out of some of my reporting on Cohen. And the interesting thing about that is I didn't go looking for that. That story came to me, and, you know, it's one of those things that happens when you're a journalist where you hit a story, and all of a sudden all these sources start opening up. I was investigating the Russian mafia, and it was doing that. One of my sources said, hang on a second, you might want to take a look at this because Cohen is connected to all this. And the Russian mafia is a theme that runs through my book.
Wow.
It runs through Cohen, it runs through Trump, and yeah, so that's, you know.
When you say Cohen is connected to all of this in regard to the Russian mafia, that'll raise some eyebrows here. What do you mean?
So, you know, Cohen, you know, has several family connections. His uncle owned a club in Brighton Beach that was a hangout for the Russian mafia, and Cohen had a share of that, which he gave up when Trump was elected president. It's not clear why he gave it up. It's interesting that he did. And secondly, he married into a Ukrainian family, and that family has his father-in-law has a criminal conviction, and there's the father-in-law, what my sources tell me, is that he's been a conduit for money into Trump's businesses and into some other kind of interesting businesses all around the country, actually.
So you talk about a definitive history here with Trump and Russia. You go back to 1984 as a starting point.
Right.
Does President Trump have an unusual affinity for Russia, or was it common for someone in real estate at that time to take an interest in what could come after the Cold War, for example?
Yeah, Trump is a man who, you know, what my reporting shows is that he will take money from pretty much anyone. And he doesn't really care where you got your money as long as it doesn't come back to bite him. So in '84, there were some Russians, you know, right here in New York, who were running a pretty sophisticated and lucrative scam. They needed a place to launder the money, and Trump found them, and he solicited them, said, hey, you might want to invest in Trump Tower. It's going to be a good investment. And they put, you know, about $6 million into the building and bought 5 apartments. And that was kind of the beginning of the relationship.
So, Jared, how connected is he to Russia dealings, and how concerned should he be, given what you've learned so far?
You mean Kushner?
Kushner.
Yeah. He's, I think he's got, I didn't find much reporting on Kushner, to tell you the truth. I think that he has other problems, that he's got financial issues, and he's got numerous problems with his own personal investments, but I'm not sure there's too much of a Russia connection.
What about other members of the Trump family as it pertains to Russia?
Yeah, I think the main conduit is Trump himself and Cohen and maybe some other intermediaries. The children have been to Russia. Don Jr. made numerous trips to Russia.
There was some strange trip I keep hearing about during
Didn't
the
Ivanka sit in Putin's chair in the Kremlin?
Right. So that's the famous. There was a trip to Russia that Don. It was Don Jr. and Ivanka, I think, went to Russia, and Trump had Felix Sater, who was a convicted criminal and a felon, who was working with Trump at that time and has his own kind of connections to the Russian mafia. He had Sater accompany his children around Moscow, and that's when, you see that email saying, hey, I got Ivanka to sit in Putin's chair, and we're going to get Putin on this, and we're going to help Trump win the election.
Wow. The book is Trump Russia: A Definitive History. Seth Hettena, thank you very much. Emily Jane Fox, thank you as well. Joe?
Well, Mika, thinking back over today's show, I was touched by what John Meacham said regarding Harry S. Truman, who on this day announced to the world in 1945 that the Allied forces had beaten Hitler and Nazism in Europe. And it really does speak to the soul of America that a plain man from Independence, Missouri, would shape the post-war world and give us a post-war world that led to the American century, just like 80 years before him, Mika. Two simple men, Lincoln and Grant, saved the Union. We should be so lucky to find such women and men as we march forward as a nation still in search of its soul.
And on that perfect note, for Willie, Joe, and me, that does it for us this morning.